These are the things you're going to need. Some string. You don't have to have a rusty can. You can just use a can. When I first started doing eco printing, this was just a food can. But if it's rusty, it helps act as a mordant, which means that it helps the colour bind to the paper better. So I literally put one of these cans outside into my yard and left it there to get weathered. So this is a good 6 to 8 months worth of weathering. It took a long time to get to look like this, but it does give quite good results, and you get some nice markings on the paper as well. I've cut some paper up into small pieces because I wanted particularly small pieces, and I might even halve these again depending on how they print out. So I've already soaked my leaves in some rusty water. You don't have to do this either, but if you can do, the iron in the rusty water again acts as a mordant, which helps to bind the colour to the paper, so you just get a stronger print. I did this last time I printed and it worked quite well, but I've also printed without doing this. Some people say if you spray vinegar onto the paper, that helps. There are chemical mordants, well, such as alum, but I prefer not to use alum. I just like the rusty water. So what I'm going to do is start laying my things, and I'm going to use some rubber gloves just because it is quite messy and I don't particularly want to be sticking my hands in rusty water. So you just get your plants materials and lay them on in any order that you like. I have some marigold flowers here, so I'm just going to try and see if I get a good print from those. These ferns do give really nice prints. You can lay them on in any way that you want. I've had some relatively good prints from holly leaves. Let's try another marigold up there. And then I'm going to place another piece on top of that. And then because I want this as the back of the card and not another design, because otherwise you get a double-sided print, I'm going to go straight on top of that with the next piece that I want and start placing again. And you just keep doing this until you've covered all of your pieces of paper. So I'll be back in a sec when I've done that. Okay, so I've just bundled up the last one, and then I'm going to take these papers and wrap them tightly around this can. So I'm just going to sort my string out. So you need to cut yourself a relatively good length of string so you can tighten it round a few times. String has managed to tie itself around something. How does string do that? So what I do is place the papers flat, pop the tin on top, and then grab them. Just going to make sure that that can's relatively in the centre. So you can use larger pieces than this. I've used larger pieces so the pages hang over and it works fine. I haven't tried really big pieces using this tin method. And then you just tie it all together, wrap it round. Tuck that. And it doesn't need to be tied in a knot or anything. It just needs to be secure enough. And then you need to take a saucepan. I've just put that at the bottom, and can you see there it's left some stains on it before, some plant stains from bits that were floating in the water and from the string, which is quite interesting. I'm going to pop that can on top of there and then fill it to kind of halfway with water, and then I'll just pop this down on the top to weigh the can down, and then I'm going to put it to boil for about 45 minutes. So I've just put the boil on. I'm just going to pop that on the top. And what you can do if you want to is add a tea bag or some other little bits into the water. I'm just going to add a few more of these little marigolds because that will help add colour to the rest of the paper as well. I don't happen to have any tea bags loose, so I'm just going to chuck in a few marigolds just to see, a few marigolds that I've had mordanting in there. See if that does anything. I don't know whether it will or not, but it might do. I've added berry tea leaves and things in here before. That seems to have worked quite well. I'm hoping, I've tried with marigolds before and not had much luck, but I didn't soak them in iron in rusty water last time. So I'm just going to see if this makes any difference. So I'm going to pop a lid on just to leave it to boil. And then we'll come back and have a look. So it's been about an hour and I've let it boil. I'm just going to simmer it up a little bit longer. Got my oven glove. I think I'm going to let it sit a little bit longer actually. It doesn't matter so much if some of the water is, if some of the paper is out of the water as the water evaporates, because the steam also helps to set the colour. Okay, so it's finished boiling and I've strained all of the water away, and we're just left with the papers. It's still hot, so I'm using an oven glove. Make sure you don't touch the hot can. You can see those little bits left in there. So what we need to do now is let it dry. So you want to let it dry at least 24 hours. So I'm just going to let it sit there and cool down and dry out until tomorrow. And then we'll do the big unwrapping and see what we've got. It's always really exciting because you never know exactly what you're going to get until you unwrap it. And sometimes you get great results, sometimes they're not so great. So it really is trial and error. But if you can keep a record of which particular leaves and plant materials make good prints, you know which ones to use next time and which ones not to bother with. Sometimes you'll also find that leaf prints will print one direction, but they won't print so well the other, if that makes sense. So either the front of the leaf will print very well or the back of the leaf. So I did also add a little bit of old coffee to the water whilst it was boiling, because I wanted the paper was too light for me. I like the paper to be a little bit browner, and I normally add a tea bag to the water, but I didn't have a tea bag this time. But I did have some cold coffee left over from this morning, so I added that instead. So hopefully that will have taken the whiteness out of the paper. And we'll see what colours we get. So we'll see you tomorrow. So here we are. Now I was actually really busy for the next couple of days, so this went in, I took this out of the boiling pot on Wednesday late afternoon, and it's actually now Saturday. So it's been wrapped and drying for a couple of days, which is the longest I've ever left it. So let's see what kind of results we've got after 2 days. So all you need to do is unwrap and see what you're left with. You will notice you have lots of little bits. It might be difficult peeling it off the can after this amount of time. So let's have a look, see what we've got. I've got a nice blue colour and a nice imprint, lovely imprint there on one side. More of an imprint on the reverse side of that. I've got a lovely pattern there and a nice imprint there, and that's where the blue flower was. Oh yeah, this one's lovely. Lovely leaf print there of the holly. I'm seeing though so far it seems to be a lot of negative image printing rather than the actual leaf die, which is interesting. So the leaves, so that one's a nice die one. That's lovely. So we've got both sides there if I wanted to. That's interesting. And you'll notice that these do dry a little bit clearer because these are still quite wet, even though they've been pressed together for a few days. Now that one's mainly just lots of brown imprints. That's interesting. So you just need to brush away all of the little bits, and then what you need to do is put them out to dry singularly, and then once they're all dry, flatten them. Oh, lovely images there. I never get an awful lot from the marigolds, which is interesting because they're supposed to be good dye plants. Although that's quite a nice impression there. You can really see the iron soak has left the stains, but it's left the stains iron coloured rather than leaf coloured, but maybe that's because I was using old leaves rather than fresh leaves. So that one didn't have anything in between it apart from this one, which got in there. Oh, this one's lovely. You can just see the holly leaf there. That looks really pretty. And this leaf printed quite well. That must have been this one. I love these images as well because these ferns have been dead for a long time, so that's probably why they didn't actually give me much of a colour. But I really like the negative printing. And this one's really textured. I don't know whether you can see, but it's got indentations in it, which is really nice, actually, a nice feature. So once these have dried out, you'll be able to see the colour a little bit more. So I wouldn't say this was the best result I've ever had, but each result is different. And once these papers have dried out, you'll be able to see them a bit better. But I do have some really nice images on there. I actually quite like that side as well, which is the can. So I'm going to put these out to dry flat. I love this one. This one's really pretty. And this one's actually quite nice with it being yellow, orangey, browny orangey colour. Oh, that one's got the better side. These are really nice for painting on top of when you just get a nice background impression. And this one is lovely as well. So these are my favourites, I think. These three. Although that one's quite nice as well. Quite like the colours in this one. It's slightly different colours. To the others, but this one's definitely one of my favourites. In fact, looking at them all, they're all quite nice. They're all beautiful in their own way. This one, once they're dried, you can brush off the dead bits of leaf a little bit easier. Although that one's really pretty as well. So I'm going to let them dry and see how they look once they're dried, and then see what I want to do with them. So I hope you've enjoyed. If you have, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.